Those who truly know Christ's forgiveness can't help but bring him honor. How does knowing how much we've been forgiven help us to forgive others? Today's key verse reads, "Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little." Luke chapter 7, verse 47. Among first-century Jews in Palestine, many groups were considered ceremonially impure, including shepherds, tax collectors, camel drivers, custom collectors, and tanners. Also included in this group were prostitutes, who were not only ceremonially, but also morally impure. The sinners were the social outcasts of first-century Judaism. While most of the religious leaders would affirm that all people sin, these sinners would be those who sinned with a deliberate disregard for the law, or simply those who were from outside of the Jewish people, and therefore in no way connected to the law. This group would have been excluded from the covenant blessings of Israel. Jesus interacted with sinners with no discrimination, which attracted the hostility of the Pharisees. Jesus is invited to the home of a Pharisee named Simon as the guest of honor. As the banquet is under full swing, a woman appears. She has a bad reputation. Nothing is said about her except that she is a sinner. She goes to Jesus and washes his feet with her tears. She then proceeds to anoint them with expensive perfume from an alabaster jar. Simon the Pharisee reacts in disbelief. He thinks that Jesus would not have allowed her to touch him if he really was a prophet. This woman was fearless. She had to cross two barriers to do what she did. First was a gender barrier. According to the culture then, women were supposed to keep their hair covered. Wiping his feet with her hair would have been considered taboo. Second, she was a sinner, and he was a distinguished rabbi. Her place was on the outside with the other sinners and societal rejects. In spite of this, she was bold enough to approach him. Her desire to honor Jesus was greater than any barriers in her way. Jesus shows Simon that he really is a prophet. He knows Simon's thoughts and proceeds to tell a short parable about a creditor who forgives two debtors. Jesus asks Simon, "Which one loved the creditor most?" Simon answered, "The one who he forgave most." The parable provides a stark contrast between the different perceptions of sin in the life of the self-righteous, as opposed to the needy sinner. In other words, we all have been forgiven an enormous debt. Only a few realized the greatness of it and respond appropriately to God's grace. Jesus points out that Simon, who should know better, has not offered him the customary hospitality for a guest of honor. Jesus explains why this woman was so bold in giving honor. She knew her many sins were forgiven, so she loveth much. Jesus then turns to the woman and causes quite a stir with his next words. He declares forgiveness for her sins. The honor that she gave to Jesus resulted in her shame being taken away. She can now live her life in peace, just like all who choose to honor Christ and accept his gift of forgiveness. Here's our lesson. Many seem to feel no shame for their sinful actions. In fact, if you look at reality TV, some have become celebrities by parading their sin in public. And while it may seem like most of the world callously acts without a conscience, most feel shame for what they have done. It may not be apparent, but we all experience a desire to hide from others and God because of our sin. Jesus shows us that we do not have to hide, but we must be bold in honoring him as the only one who can offer forgiveness. Christ's acceptance of us is why we no longer have to wear a mask of shame. Those who boldly sin and display their wicked behavior and those who trust in their own righteousness still bear the weight of their sin. Their shameful behavior cannot be covered no matter how much they try to hide it. Forgiveness and acceptance can only be found in Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to iLights. May the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus.